exclusively on Zolized Radio 96.1 FM. It's the perfect way to spice up your midweek routine and get answers to all your burning questions. Whether you're looking for relationship advice or curious about the art of intimacy, Roma's got you covered. Pleasure Pulse, every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Only on Zolized Radio 96.1 FM. Don't miss out. Your sex education journey starts this Tuesday with Roma as your guide.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pleasure Pulse. I'm your host, Roma Richardson, and I'm so happy to have you here with me this evening, as usual. Sorry, not... What was I going to say? I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm so happy to have you here with me another Tuesday. Excited to get into tonight's conversation. But as usual, before we dive into our topic tonight, I like to give you all just a few minutes or a few seconds sometimes to gather everyone, to let everybody know that Pleasure Pulse is live. So we'll do that and then come right back and start tonight's conversation. So stay tuned. Pulse. I'm your host, Roma Richardson, and you're tuned in to Zolized online, on Facebook, and on radio, on YouTube as well. I'm so happy that you've joined us for tonight's conversation, and of course, I have a guest here with me tonight. I'll allow her to introduce herself. She's not new to the show, but just in case you're tuning in for the first time, please tell everybody, or maybe you have a new introduction. Last week, an introduction. Last week, Amani kind of set the stage for introductions. So I don't. Because I feel like on Pleasure Pulse we do things different, right? Like this is a different kind of show, and so I like the idea of giving people space to speak for themselves, to identify themselves however they want, and not necessarily reading your bio and saying you are this, that. Okay. Okay.
But for tonight, my name is Deloma, and I'm here with
Wilma. Yes. And we are going to have another exciting tonight we're talking about being single. We've had couple shows together, I think, where we touched on dating. We've had at least one where we touched on dating, and it was focused on dating in a small society, like seeing kids, and some of the struggles that surround dating. And then, I had a follow-up conversation with Dawood about, the same topic, but from a guy's perspective. I wanted to make sure, though, that because the conversation around dating can sometimes focus on the challenges and struggles and negative side, or hardships of dating. But I wanted to think about the joys of not just dating, or not dating here, but of being single. Because while you are in that space, whether you are actively seeking a partner or whether you are just, chilling by yourself, you're enjoying singledom, singlehood, whatever it is, there are some benefits that come with that. So I wanted us to get into some of those benefits, full disclosure. A caveat, no, not really a caveat, but full disclosure, necessary for me to admit, I'm not single right now, but I have been single. Huh?
You said that like that's not being again.
No. I have been single before. It's just to say, like, I can't speak to the current dating pool or anything like that.
So
because
how long have you been in this
relationship since 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's 3 years. Congrats to me. Happy anniversary. Yeah, so it's been a couple years, and then before that, skipping over. Well, that doesn't count. Before that, I had a relationship that was 4 years long. This kind of makes me sound like I've been in relationships for those were both major achievements. Those were both like accomplishments of mine, because before that it was like high school relationships, secondary relationships that are like a month, maybe a year. So I've made progress.
Okay, so the joys of being single.
Yeah, the joys of being single.
So you want to start off this conversation?
Well, I have some questions here. And the first one is, let's just start more broadly. So, people experience singlehood differently, and people are single for different reasons as well. You could be not choosing to be single but having a hard time finding a partner, or you could have chosen to be single and you are completely okay, being alone in that way, like being not in a relationship. But I think there is a lot of, or some people might describe it as a lot of freedom that comes with being single. So how do you define freedom in your single life?
You just get to do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking of myself like in a relationship, and like my most recent experience was carnival. So last year, I was in a relationship, and then I had to do carnivals, and then we had to navigate. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do
Because
that.
he's a hot girl, so you do carnival like a hot girl.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, my intention wasn't to like go out on the road and brawl up.
Right.
But you have to be respectful. You're in a relationship. There are gonna be guys approaching you, obviously. So you have to kind of shut down in that space. But now being single, you just get to experience it all.
So less concern and restrictions on what you can do. So would you say that when you're in a relationship, you're more mindful of like not dancing on everybody? Is it like what's the difference for you? Is it
It's respect
dependent
for
on
your partner and
person?
understanding, I guess, what their boundaries are. I mean, outside of carnival, it's like you always have to kind of be mindful when you're somewhere that your partner is not, and you could potentially be engaging other single people. You know, you have to always be mindful of. I'm in a relationship.
Right, and what the I don't want to say rules, but what the agreements are in your relationship. Cause like I was on Instagram the other day, and I was just like watching videos from different carnivals, around the world and stuff, and looking at like people liking pictures. It was like a little mini research, right? Because some people in relationships like have a problem with their partners liking
Other people's
other
pictures.
pictures, especially pictures maybe where people are in bikinis or where they I don't want to say skinny notes, like it is a lot of booty shaking and stuff. And some people are okay with that. So that was another thing that I thought of, right? Because like when you're single, ain't nobody to say, oh,
But
hey.
the thing is, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me picture. So we are looking at people who are single. You ain't dating anybody really with like commitment expectations. Okay. So of course in that sense, like yeah, you basically could just do whatever you want and you don't have to think about, oh my gosh, the person gonna see me liking this person's picture, what they gonna think, like, you just get to live your life.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, like, maybe even in relationships and being in the culture that we have where, that kind of dancing style is the norm. And then now we have to, like, maybe my friend is a big dancer
Right.
and I'm just genuinely
He's a big
showing
dancer.
support.
He's a big yes.
You
Sorry.
know,
Yes.
by liking her stuff or
Right.
sharing her stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't even do
Right.
things like that in a relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point that you raised, like contextualizing
Right.
things as well. But when you're single, as you said, those are not worries that you have. Like there's no consideration that you have to give for people's feelings, and that isn't to sound like you are a forever isolated, uncaring person or anything like that, but sometimes you're just in the phases, or sometimes you're in stages where you're like, I don't want to have to think about
Right.
anybody else, and that's completely okay.
Something that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Well, I can't really speak on this, but I know a lot of men usually say like when they're single, they get to save more money. Like financially for men, they like being single because I realize that I always turn these conversations into something.
Financial.
So I need to stop that.
That's you are here as the financial expert.
But it's interesting to me because I know a lot of females who would say the opposite. They
Yeah.
find that when they're in relationships, it's like harder for them financially. Like they don't feel taken care of. Like, I don't know, maybe that doesn't be supporting the man then.
Oh, well, I am definitely, because I was going to say, my relationship is long distance or short distance, as I like to call it. We live in separate spaces, but I definitely feel it in my pocket when we're together. So I'm one of those women who like,
But that's because they have to pay airfare and all that.
But even when I'm there, or like when he's here, sorry to make you sound like that, maybe people there saying, I believe in, or I, Roma, am okay with sharing, financial responsibilities. And when you have to feed two people, it's much more expensive.
More groceries.
Buy everything for two, music, tickets for two people.
Right.
not necessarily clothes for two people, but tickets for two people, food for two people, two people using a vehicle instead of one means, more trips to the gas station and lots of other things that, financially you do notice the
Right.
difference, between when you're single and not. So there's that.
So, I mean, maybe like a joy of being single is that you get to save some fun.
You get to save some.
Yeah,
You get to watch your bank account grow.
Right. But I mean, being single is fun. I find nowadays like there's people kind of pressured to get into relationships, and it's like you don't need to feel pressure. Like that would come in its own time. Like just enjoy the space you're in, get to know yourself. And I think for people who struggle while being single is maybe because they're not comfortable with themselves. They're not comfortable with being alone, like even doing things alone. Like for me, I'm like starting this whole new chapter where I like doing things. I mean, I'm naturally alone anyways, but really like going out in more public spaces
alone
and being alone. And it's like you don't have to worry about continuing a conversation. I mean, you can have a conversation with yourself. I mean, it's so much things like you don't have to worry about like being single.
Yeah, you also don't have to worry about being on, because that's I mean, it depends on the kind of relationship that you're in, right? But I know, like, sometimes you do give consideration to how you are showing up. Or not sometimes. You do give consideration to how you are showing up in your relationship and in spaces, right? And so sometimes there could be, a pressure to be more or do more than you might. So maybe by yourself, you might just sit there and not speak all day. And you're okay with that. Whereas when you're in a relationship, if you did that, the other person might assume that something was
Right.
there was a problem to be addressed or anything like that. So it also, in addition to you having to spend more time with yourself, it helps you. I think there's an opportunity to just be, like, just be without the requirement to do or anything like that. So you define freedom in your single life as just being able to do whatever you want to do. So you started talking about how, just like around that, and related to that, about starting to go out more and enjoying your own company. Let's get into that a bit, because I think sometimes we can use relationships as crutches and as like ways to avoid being with ourselves and getting accustomed to and comfortable with our own, like, personalities, our own company.
Right.
So what are some things that you have started to do to just get comfortable being with yourself? God, don't say be by yourself or be alone, but being with yourself. Like you're there in someone's company. It's just that company is your own.
I didn't realize I started doing it until recently, but every Friday I try to take myself out somewhere nice for lunch. Like normally I would just cook and bring food out of the workplace, but I said, you know what, every Friday I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna go somewhere nice. I'm gonna sit down alone and enjoy the meal. So something like that, and it's been nice.
But how have you managed that? Because I have done that successfully a few times, but I remember before doing it successfully, I would go with the intention to stay and sit and eat and then be like, wait to go. Then, because it's
Really?
like, you are there alone. Like some places I think it's okay to go alone because the way that the places are set up, the typical vibe of the place or whatever, they either have a lot of other people who are there alone, but like at a restaurant, and all restaurants are seated starting with twos.
Okay,
How
well,
do you?
let me not say restaurants. Like, these are like cafes. So, like you have Coconut Grove, you have Sweet and Savory. Like, those kind of places are less intimidating. If you have a more dining crowd, then maybe yes. But to be honest, I didn't even really see it as that. Like, for me, I was just more excited about going to the place and eating the food more than anything. Like, I want to see what the menu looks like.
Okay.
So I didn't really think about that. Like, I'm going to be alone. Like, as I said, I'm alone. So I guess maybe I've adjusted to that part of it mentally. It's just more about, stepping out and just treating yourself. That is what it's more about. Like, me treating myself to something. So more a self-care aspect, not necessarily like I'm trying to break this what you just call it? Would you say it's an insecurity?
I don't know.
But I know some people do struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like, they can't be alone because then they're gonna feel like people judging them, like, oh, why is she alone, why is she by herself? But for me, I don't struggle with that part of it, just being honest.
Yeah.
But I know that there are people who do, but if you're somebody who does, I would recommend that you watch Leo Skeppy on YouTube. You know that dude. I'm kind of in love with. He's a bit problematic, but trust me, like, I just like his don't care attitude.
Okay. I think all of that is really valuable, and I think it's important to spend time with yourself and take those extra steps to go out and treat yourself. And I like that you said that, because it's like, you can, and this is not me saying you can give yourself everything a partner can give you. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there are some things you can still access whether you are in a relationship or not. So sometimes we are used to our partners being the ones to buy us flowers, or our partners being the ones to like buy us gifts, and so
been doing that.
buying herself.
Okay. So he got me Elena business. I've seen her like weekly. She goes to Rams. I know Rams now have the flower display, so weekly she buys flower. I wouldn't necessarily say she's buying it for herself, but she likes like putting it in her home. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yes.
I mean, I'm gonna get them $60, but I think that's cute.
I was going to ask for a sponsorship.
Sometimes I don't forget. Like,
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But
you can still.
we do appreciate the initiative. I'm just saying, I'm a broke single.
Yeah, so sometimes there can be, giveaways. And so, because, like, even around Valentine's, right? You have Galentines. I don't know if there's Guyentines or Boyentines. I don't know what. But there are so many holidays and moments that are more relationship focused than they need to be, and that market everything in twos, or not usually more, but in twos, right? And I'm like, there's a missed opportunity for people to market things to single folks, because single folks also show themselves love, especially on times like that where for some people, the reminder of being single might feel a little bit heavy, or for some people they might use it as a chance to celebrate and be like, I love, me.
You know what I find, like, especially when we have promotions or holidays, it's more like group centered. It's not really like,
even Christmas, it's like
treat
couples.
Yourself. Like, it's more like you and a friend.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's why.
Yeah, we need more emphasis on and more celebration and recognition of people doing things. with themselves, because people do, and we need to normalize it too, and people can feel more comfortable, I think, to do things alone if there are more people doing it. And you could I started small too with something like going to the movies, because in the movies, like, it's dark for one, so nobody really seeing you, and it's an activity that's already planned for you. So you are going there, you don't have to necessarily think about, okay, what am I going to do in that time, because you're watching a movie. So I would also suggest that for single folks who are getting into or want to think about some things that they could do on their own, like go to planned activities, like register on your own for a planned activity. Like you could go to a hike, you might meet people there, as well as you might choose to just walk, use that as a quiet moment of reflection or whatever it is. But I think signing up for planned activities where you don't have to plan it is also a good idea.
And I like that you brought up, like, meeting people, because sometimes, I guess, when we're single, we automatically think, like, you have to jump back into a relationship to fill that void. But sometimes you can make really good, supportive, platonic relationships and meet people who, like, that relationship, that friendship might have been better than a lot of your past relationships. Like, you're meeting, like, a genuine friend who would share, similar interests that, you do. So I think that's a good suggestion as well. Like, not because you're single, like, I'm a man, like, a woman, I mean, you don't have, like, a fulfilling life.
Right.
Like, you can meet, platonic friends. Not friends with benefits, like genuine friends who just want to connect and you share similar interests.
Yeah, this reminds me of two things, and one, I don't want you to get me started on it, which is Bell Hooks All About Love.
Oh, the book?
Yes.
Well, may you promise me the book? Can you bring it to me?
For sure?
Yes, it is.
Oh, he just home. I'll bring it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
So that book, because in that book, a huge part of it talks about how, like, all love is the same and comes from the same place, right? And she doesn't differentiate between romantic love or platonic love. It's like all love. And so the encouragement, the reminder is there that you can access or tap into love from any space, right? So you might be, whether you're looking, to be partnered or not, you can still feel that love from friends, from other people, from family, whatever it is. Some people get a dog or a pet, when they're single, but we're talking humans, at least for now. So there is that. And then I think aside from that love that I believe is accessible to us all and is available in that form, I believe it's also important for us to recognize that we can also find that love within ourselves. So sometimes, and it kind of touches back on what we were talking about earlier about, like, spending time with ourselves and so on. Sometimes a lot of the things that we are avoiding dealing with, we place on partners, right? So it's like we continue avoiding having to come to terms or having to face certain things when we are in the security or protection or, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, of a relationship that sometimes you can't when you're single. So sometimes being single helps you to learn a lot more about yourself, discover a lot more about what you like, what you don't like. Self-pleasure maybe becomes more, heightened, more frequent thing for you when you're single versus when you're in a relationship. So you get to know yourself, or you can get to know yourself better sexually when you are single as well. And I'm also encouraging people, if they're single, to explore. Like, being single does not mean that you can't tap into these things. Like, pleasure is still available to you, joy is still available to you, love is still available to you, even if you are single. And I think, it's also, as you said too, like, we place a lot of emphasis on finding a partner, this, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes the emphasis feels like any partner will do once you find somebody. And
anybody slides in the DM.
and I am just loving, I don't know if it's a movement or whatever, but I am loving observing people who are like, I'm single, but I'm not settling. I'm single, but I'm clear on what it is I'm looking for. And I remember, what else I was going to say, that it reminded me of, I don't know if you've watched that podcast, if you watched the podcast, Michelle Obama and her brother. But I had an episode with Tracy Ellis Ross. That's the one where she was talking about dating younger men, and everybody took it out of context and had her to kill. Everybody had her to kill. But she was talking about being child free and also being single, but that not meaning that she doesn't live a fulfilling and joyful life. So it's like, and she was not saying that like she's sworn off of dating or anything like that, but she was like, while I am in this, era, or it might not be an era, it might be, her life, I am going to enjoy it. So I am going to make good friends and have good relationships, even if they don't involve sex. And I am going to, I think she talked about like being surrounded by, or having children around her, even if none of them, is hers. So I think I also want to like really stress using the moment to, or not using the moment, or not interpreting the moment as meaning that certain things are not accessible to you. Like, everything is still there, and you can still, not you necessarily, you can still reach, you can still tap into it.
This is just me like comparing it to, again, our culture. In St. Kitts, we encourage people a lot to have kids, but we don't really push for like relationships
and marriage.
And I think maybe what we have is like this generation realizing the impact that kind of mindset had on them. So, now that I'm like entering my 30s, like I guess more and more of my friends are now having kids. So we kind of reached that point where, okay, we kind of...
you reached that point?
Yeah.
I'm looking at my friends and I can't say we reached
really?
that point. And I older than you, but...
Well, not all, but I'm just saying, like...
I think there was a gap. Like, I think... I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think there was, like, a gap, a shift in culture where, like, people my age and a little bit older who, especially if they have younger siblings, had to raise, participate in the raising of those children, those people in that age group.
Like, when I think about my parents, like, they got married when they were 25.
Which is like...
By this age, my mom had 3 kids.
Ooh.
So then I'm like, I'm trying to picture me.
Yeah, right. Like, people that be like, when is your turn? And I'd be like, me? I still a child.
Yeah, I would feel like I'm a teen mom if I was to have a child. Like,
my mother had 29, and when 29 came for me, I was like... It's not. It's
But
not. It's
I
not
think-
giving child.
I think, maybe I'm a bit more biased, but I think what I'm seeing now is like people are raising more emotionally intelligent kids because they're delaying and getting to know themselves, learning how to properly parent a child, you know. So I think like even, if you're single in your 30s, and you shouldn't feel like, you need to run and catch up. Like, this is what it's all about, like learning more about yourself so that when that person does come around, like, you know what you're looking for in a partner, you're a bit more stable mentally and emotionally to actually, have a healthy relationship. And I think, like, that's the joy of being single. Like, just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. So it's also.
It's not necessarily like, I think I was saying like you're preparing yourself for like a relationship. But
Right,
it's not
no.
that. It's just that if that does come around, like,
Yeah, and if that's something that you want, I think I'm
Right.
also hearing like if that's something that you desire, you get to get ready for that. Of course, like sometimes people say like you had to be healed or whatever to be in a relationship. I don't know that. First of all, I don't know that anybody is ever fully healed, like healed full stop. Like healing is something continuous,
Yes,
right?
right.
And I think everyone deserves love, right? So I believe that you don't have to wait until you're fully healed, like you check the last box or whatever to enter into a relationship. Now, if you think it's something that is really going to hinder your ability to show up wholly and fully, set boundaries, respect other people's boundaries, value things like autonomy and consent and respect and dignity and so on, then by all means continue to work on
Right.
that. But there is a lot that is healed in and sometimes only in, relationships with other people. So anyways, that was still a side note, and we're talking about the joy of single and the joys of being single, and we're also going into like, but of course, some people are single, some people choose to be single forever. So I would love to talk to folks who have either never been in like serious committed relationships or whatever, or have had them, now and again, but people maybe who consider themselves like perpetually single, like Samantha on Sex and the City. You was like, who's Samantha? When I said Samantha first, and then you realize I'm talking about a fictional character. Samantha on Sex and the City is like perpetually single
Right.
to me, as opposed to her friends who are different places on the relationship spectrum. So I would love to talk to
Someone
people like that. Yeah, to hear what that's been like and how they
I knew
have.
someone like that, but then, like, when my mind went to them, like, I realized that they're in a relationship and they're all for their girlfriend now. So I can't even use that person as an example. But, I'm sure, like, when he was single, like,
Yeah,
he enjoyed his life.
yeah.
But something that came to my mind is about growing spiritually when you're single. Because I don't know about much people, but I feel like my spiritual journey, like where I feel like I get into these real spiritual
Airy
moments.
fairy. So not to like, that's not to like trivialize it or anything, but I use the word airy fairy because I am okay.
Airy fairy.
Airy fairy,
That's
like,
the first time I'm hearing that.
wow, I don't think I'm making it up. Like very university, very
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Because you get more in tune to yourself. Like, I don't want to say relationships are distractions, but like as you said, like when you're in a relationship, you always have to be aware of yourself and that person, and then how you just being you affects that person. So it's like, you get to connect with yourself so deep that you're now connecting with yourself on a more spiritual level. And like right now, like when I say spiritually, like, whatever you believe in, whether it's God or so, I do believe in God. I do believe that there's a higher power. I do believe that there are forces that, drive us. And I think, when I get into those space of consciousness, like, I thrive more on peace, like just avoiding conflict, just trying to make my life just as easy as possible. And yeah, I feel like I'm rambling.
No, you're not rambling, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of what I have observed among older women, in their like above 50s, like 55 plus, to however old, and how a lot of them have, it appears to me like, made conscious decisions to be single. And it looks like they're doing just that. Like, they're prioritizing peace, they're prioritizing joy. A lot of them have children, but their children are adults, so it's like they don't get a children and they don't raise their children. They're choosing to do whatever it is they want to do. So if that's a cruise today and lie down all week tomorrow, they will do that. You can step to them. I'm not really counting, I don't know why I'm doing this, but you can't step to them unless you are providing something that they cannot provide themselves, or that is not already present in their life. And you can't bring stress. You can't bring hardship. Like, it's like you had to done be good, and you add to my already being good, but it can't be not where you come and then we had to be conflicts and arguments and this. And I really want to do some more investigations in it, because I think it's really a magical thing that they are experiencing, because as we said, there's so much pressure to be in relationships at whatever age, right? There's so much pressure to have children. So what do you do now when you have accomplished or you have had the children? The children are an accomplishment. You have had the children. You have been in relationships, and now you are opting out unless something not worth passing up comes to you. And when you are also at an age where you kind of are able to escape some of that pressure, from other people, which doesn't mean people don't still comment on what they think might be a life, like how people will talk about the cat lady and things like that, and people who think like they're just enjoying
their life,
the existence that they have curated for themselves. So yeah, it made me think about that. I was probably rambling, but yeah, it really made me.
Maybe we just need to go to church. Like, when you're single, like, you just need to
Go
that's
to church.
somewhere that you could go by yourself.
Oh yeah,
For real, like,
that's somewhere you
I
need to
think no, but I'm being very serious. Like, I think that's a good place to start. Like, even if you want to, like, if what you desire is growing with yourself spiritually, and you see a church or you hear about a church that you like, and you just want to go, that is literally a good place, because I trust you, wherever you go, they're going to welcome you with open arms and be like, so what inspired you to come today? And I'm sure if you tell them, I just wanted to connect spiritually, they'll eat that up.
The spirit moved me.
Yeah.
Somebody put something on my chest or something.
Right. Like, I think going to church is a good place to start, if that is what you desire.
Yeah, if you want that religious connection, and also if you're looking for that kind of community, because single doesn't mean you stop being in or have to stop being in community with people, right? Like, we all need people, and that looks different
I mean, I can't go to my church.
What is that?
I can't go to my church because
Why? Oh, okay.
But,
I mean, this could be a good time to church hop.
church hop, yeah.
Yeah, that's always an option for people. Church hop. There are so many.
Well, that sounds so bad, church.
Sorry, but I was also going to say there are so many churches that have different, that are in different communities. So it's like you might not go to the one where you grew up, but you might go to one in a different. Yeah.
Sandy Point has a Catholic.
Yeah.
church,
Good go there.
so I'm not waking up 8 o'clock on us. But
I mean, 8:30 ain't far from 8 o'clock,
anyways,
and it's closer. Sorry, but it's closer.
Yeah,
So, anyways,
yeah.
do you think that being single can be more sexually liberating than being in a relationship?
Yes. The answer is yes. I think, okay, when you don't have any restrictions, you just want to, okay, I'm just talking for me, but, when you don't have any restrictions, like, I'm thinking about, like, me, we, it was fun. Like, you have nothing holding you back. You could do it without guilt. That's an important thing. Like, being able to, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I may want to get too down the road. But
That's fine. You don't have to get too detailed.
But yes, I do believe that.
Yeah. I also, so yeah, there's that, and like the opportunity for casual sex. And I also think there is, as we talked about self-pleasure, so there's a huge opportunity for self-pleasure. So now is the time when you can go on whichever website and go down the road in the gut. This is all free advertisements, so sponsor us if you're listening. And buy anything you want, try out different things. You could try things out at different times, because now too it's like you are the only one who has to be considered. So like, you ain't have to wait on nobody to come home, you ain't have to wait on nobody to show up, you don't have potentially the disappointment that might take place. You fully control your sexual experiences, and there's a lot more room to play, and I'm talking about even and especially with yourselves. So there's that. What's your favorite thing to do solo that feels sensual or empowering?
Okay, break that question over because this is a PG show.
Okay, I will repeat the question. What is your favorite thing to do solo that feels sensual or empowering?
That feels sensual or empowering. Solo? Okay, just to go back, because we're keeping it PG. I think too why I like going out for lunch on Fridays, because I get really dressed up. So in a way, like, I'm getting dressed up almost like I'm going to meet somebody, but it's like I'm doing it for myself and only for myself. And I mean, like, people will be passing, like, checking me out. And, so I think, I don't know if that's really empowering, but I like the fact that I'm doing it and there are no expectations. And I could get sexy for myself I don't necessarily need to get sexy for someone. It's basically like I'm taking myself out on a date.
Yeah.
I just say I could look forward to the food, and I don't have to cut style and be like, oh, let me eat all meat tea. No, I get to enjoy the food. That's
And
what I
eat
really
how you
do.
want.
Yeah.
And you get to order how much you want
Right.
to.
Right.
You know that you're paying for it, which might be a little disappointing.
Actually, no. I
Yeah.
mean, I do treat myself, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good PG answer that I could give.
Okay. I like going to the beach. Sorry. I said that I'm not
But
single, but I feel like that is a good
like sensual.
sensual activity. And like going to the beach after like fully moisturizing your body and not with just like lotion, but like shea butter, cocoa butter, oils, everything. Your body is nice and soft and glistening, and you're just lying down on the beach watching the waves and so on. Like it's part like connecting with nature and being like your
openly
purest
used.
self, there as well. And it's also something about like caressing your own body and taking your time and so on. That feels really.
So what beach do you like to go to?
I like to go to Cockle Shell.
Okay.
Yeah, not on the days when there are lots of
The
people.
people.
But-
So you could be more private. And,
Yeah, in the week, there's somewhere I like to put down my little blanket and have shade and read and lie down. And, the water is usually nice. So I like, and it's also like the drive there and back. Like, being single also can mean you fully control everything. Like the music that you play, like, if you live alone too, it's like you can do whatever you want, in that physical space. If you're single and a parent, and I was watching also another podcast with Zosha. Zosha is the Keisha's mom I'm talking about fictional people again. Zosha is Keisha's mother in Forever. So Zosha is
this is the movie that just came out.
the series that came out on Netflix, with the teen love story. You haven't watched it?
I watched it,
Oh.
but I have
You have
very
Tell me the thoughts after. I just was saying she did a podcast with the sex educator Shan Boudram, and she was talking about the benefits of being a single mother. And I thought the conversation was so interesting because you don't usually hear people
People talk
frame
about
single motherhood in that way. And she was talking about like being able to make decisions on her own for her child, for her family, when the child is like with their father or the child is at school or whatever, having that time to herself to do whatever she wants, like just being herself, not necessarily being the mother and so on, before she had to get back to motherhood. Anyways,
but not to delve too deep into that topic, but like when you mentioned being a single mother and the benefits, like something that is becoming, I wouldn't say a trend, but more and more people are actually looking at it as an option, is single parent motherhood by choice.
yes.
So they are actively, consciously making a decision that I would just go to, what they call it, in vitro.
Or you got a
artificial
friend and your friend
insemination.
agree
Right.
to
And
it.
honestly, I don't think like that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, like being realistic, you can find yourself in a situation where your partner walks out on you, and then you might be left, raising a child alone. And this is a reality that a lot of women, even within our society, face.
Yeah.
But it's so stigmatized when they hear like someone consciously made the decision to do this. And I'm like, what's the outrage? Like,
What's the difference? Because I mean, you talked about fathers who walk out, but there are also women who are essentially single mothers with partners. Like the father is in the house, is present, but do nothing. So it's like some people are married but really single. So yeah, I mean the outrage is just misogyny, but let's not get into that because I feel like that's the outrage.
But I mean, like, that's just to show, like, if you are single and having a child is something that you desire, there are options out there, so you don't necessarily need to be okay, well, I have to wait until I find a partner. Like, no, you can actually go out and there are options available to you for that. Everything is still I'm not say there are lots of things that still there are ways to still get what you want or to find versions of what you want. And to finish, what would you say is the most unexpected joy you have discovered since being single? Good sleep.
Wow.
Good sleep. Like, I'm like, like you don't realize how good you had it, like having your queen size bed alone. Until someone's not there anymore. Yeah. Like, I thought I might have missed, having a warm body, but to be honest, like, good sleep.
It's so interesting that you said that, because when I was coming and thinking about this question, I was thinking about the topic. People that be like, they ain't gotta worry about who doing this or who doing that or where this person be or this. They could just go sleep peacefully. So I think it's interesting that you talk about sleep when I was thinking about sleep in the context of this conversation in general.
I mean, that too, and I'm somebody who, like, especially now, I'm more conscious of things like that. Like, if I'm dating somebody, I probably don't even really want to see your stuff coming up on my social media. So I just start muting it, because when you start seeing a lot of things, you start to question and compare. So
release all of that.
Release all of that. Throw that away.
And all of that is released when you are single.
Right. And just focus on you, like being your soft girl. Do guys have soft guy era? Like, what does a soft guy... Well, I think, like, maybe a soft guy era with them just be, I'm just gonna grind and do what I gotta do.
Probably.
So maybe not soft guy, hard guy era. I don't know. Yeah. But, just enjoy being single.
Yeah.
Go out with friends. Music festival is coming up. Hey, maybe go to music festival
and
by
there will
yourself.
Be a lot of singles.
And there will be a lot
fest.
of people out there. I'm not going there. I'm going with Manny.
Okay. Oh, you're not going alone. Okay.
I'm going with Manny.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. So you can go alone, with yourself, or you can go with a friend.
Right.
You can find people there, because people do that all the time, especially if you and some other people like the same artist. So people bond over things like that. But yeah, that is a great suggestion for somewhere that you can go, with yourself. Of course, be safe. And next week I hopefully will do an episode on being safe for Music Fest, whether you are single and with yourself or not. But yeah, that's also one of the activities where everything is done for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if you have any final words for our listeners.
Final words, just enjoy being yourself and with yourself.
Thank you so much to my guest Diloma for joining us, all of us tonight for this conversation. I hope that whether you are single or not, you got something for it. I don't want to say preparation for your single period because I don't, but you might choose that.
Nothing is wrong in preparing for
you might choose that.
It's not working out.
Yeah, you could choose that.
And this is the sign that you need.
And I encourage that fully. I feel like it's definitely important to have periods where you are with yourself, and so you get to learn who you are outside of a relationship. Right. So it could be prep, it could be what you are currently living, your current status. You could have been single in the past and maybe you're like, oh, I miss these things about being single. Perhaps there are some things that you can incorporate even if you are not single in your partnered life. You can still spend time with yourself as a partnered person, and you should still do that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's conversation on the joys of being single. I look forward to talking with you all next week, and as usual, I'm wishing you a pleasurable single solo evening. Bye.
Bye.